Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Bradley van der Straeten room set here at the CP Hart showroom in Waterloo. We're delighted to have Georgian and Ewald, the designers of this beautiful installation, here with us for a Q&A session all about creating a healthy and livable space in your own home. We're going to invite Georgian and Ewald to join us now, so if you just bear with us for a couple of minutes. I think they're just joining now. Got there. Hi, guys.
Hello, Alice. How are you, Alice? Very good, thank you.
Good. Sorry about that. A few technical issues.
Yeah, I think that's our fault. That's our fault, yes.
We're there now. So I've just introduced you and said that we're in your room set. And we've got a number of questions to go through, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
There's a bit of a recurring theme around lighting. So I think if we start there, Coltman Studios said, what's the best way of achieving both bright lighting for showering and makeup, whilst also that sort of dim mood lighting when bathing?
Yes, good question to start with. I'm going to use my own bathroom as a reference point because I think that's always the easiest thing, the most familiar thing of trying out something on yourself and then actually seeing if it works. But like in my bathroom, it's really simple. I've got a tube strip light above a mirror that's quite kind of bright white light that's suitable for kind of mirror and that kind of thing. And then I just have two ceilings, like surface mounted ceiling spotlights that are the kind of ones that, I don't know if there's a technical name for them, but the kind of lights that have like a rim inside that's brass coloured, you know, the light.
Yeah.
And you get this kind of nice warm orange glow. And I mean, normally we generally advise having 3 different sources of artificial light in a bathroom, so you've got that choice. In my bathroom, it works really well just having 2. And I find most of the time I just have these 2 spotlights that have this kind of nice orange glow. It's not too glary, it's quite kind of moody, and that's what I sort of use them most of the time.
Yeah.
But I have that between the 2, there's like a really nice combination that can create like 3 different moods, basically, both of them on together, just the mirror light on, or just the other one on.
The same principles apply like a kitchen where you got task lighting by your mirror, where you need the most amount of light, where you got ambient light or light that lights up the space generic on a general level, which is the central point maybe, and then a mood light that you ideally maybe can dim somewhere in the bathroom to tone it down a bit, to make it more relaxing and more intimate. That applies in the bathroom too. And I think that's what you described when you got to.
I think the main sort of lesson learned from doing, you know, having done a lot of bathrooms and you see things that work and some things that maybe don't work as well as you imagined. I'd say the main thing that's been learned is just never overdoing it. Like, you don't actually need that much light. And I think sometimes there's a lot of overthought. The kitchens are also a really good example where you see sort of strips of lots of, like a grid of ceiling lights. And it's, for some reason, there's often this thought of, oh, we need that for cleaning. So the lighting needs to work so that when we're cleaning, we can see absolutely everything. When you speak to people, they never, most people at houses that I go to, not ones that we've signed, just friends and things, they'll say, oh, we never use these lights, we never use those lights, and we never use those. We usually use that lamp in the corner. And I think that definitely applies to the bathroom. Bathroom is less and less a sort of practical space with noticing, and more like the bathroom that we designed in the CP Hart showroom. It's a space for sort of relaxing as well, and it's very much a sort of selfish space as well, like feeling comfortable, and lighting plays a really huge role in that.
Yeah. Do you think there's, on that basis, do you think there's been a move away from spotlights, or do you think it's just adapting and using spotlights that can be a bit softer?
I think there's definitely been a move away, because I think they're viewed more as a living space now than they are as a functional utilitarian space. And so with that, the light fittings themselves have become features to be considered.
I think they're still around. It's still good to have them, but they are used less, and the priority is lower to have everything flooded with light. It's more about creating into a space that is for yourself to relax in and to live in, rather than use on its own.
But I think the layout with lighting, one of the practical aspects in the bathroom is the IP rating, and the safety levels, and near kind of water sources for them to sort of be safe. And that, I think, often comes from, again, sort of downplaying this idea that everywhere needs to be so brightly lit, so you need coverage in the shower, you need coverage in every single corner. And for myself, in my bathroom, I don't have any lighting over the bath or over the shower. It's kind of incidental lighting that comes from the side. And that, all the benefit of that was I could choose any fitting I wanted because it didn't have to fit the kind of IP ratings that are much kind of harsher when you're right next to the shower source.
Yeah. And Lauren also had a question around, I guess, whether that approach changes if you've got a windowless bathroom.
My bathroom is windowless. I think we saw that question. I thought, like, oh, that's a good one because, yeah, I'm with whoever it is on that one for that question. Of I think there it's quite interesting to sort of think about surface and how the space is treated. So again, using that as a reference point, I've kind of got one side of the room. It's quite a small bathroom. It doesn't have any outside daylight. It doesn't have any natural ventilation. But one side of the room is built-in wood joinery of like a cabinet that's above a concealed cistern for a toilet. So it's tiled and then wood above. But where the mirror and shelf are for the sink is a kind of inset. And in one kind of way, it feels a little bit like it's a window frame. There's no window there, but the mirror in itself is a window. And that light above, when it's on, like you get with a well-designed window, the natural daylight will reflect off the side of the window frame and back into the room. And, you know, beautiful Georgian windows are amazing at achieving that kind of effect of using the frame to make space to light it. In a sense, it's doing a similar thing in that bathroom where the vanity unit emulates that window frame. Although I'd absolutely love to have a window there, I'd never choose not to, but it's, you know, that was a practical need for that particular house. So using the sort of space that might go around the light can be, using surface for light to bounce off is one good way of trying to make up for that loss.
Yeah, makes sense. It's a bit of a tenuous leap, but you mentioned Georgian. So Katie wrote in saying, what's your ultimate bathroom flooring finish for a newly refurbed Georgian bathroom?
George, are you the Georgian specialist?
The ultimate finish. I mean, God, that's it. I mean, all the bathrooms we work on, they have a sort of context that they're working with and context they're responding to. So there's people to think about, and a building to think about, and light and orientation, and all those things. There's no one sort of tick.
No, there isn't.
Answer that is.
I think it's to do with what are the parameters that you want to work with. What is the intention that you want to you have with the bathroom renovation? If you wanted to kind of clash in a good way or make it contrasting with what's there as a period feature called contemporary, it's a very different answer to I want to stick with the historic fabric of the Georgian bathroom. Then the fittings are going to look very different, or the materials are going to look very different. So that's why it's hard to answer the ultimate. I think the ultimate is different to every person.
I think for me it would have to be like, there's something classic about Georgian spaces, about Georgian proportions, but also about keeping original features in those spaces. Like it's great when you can keep a fireplace that's, if the room's big enough and the fireplace stay and the window frame stay and the coving around the top stay. And when that is the case, so if that is the ultimate Georgian bathroom, by doing all of those things, it's kind of respecting, like if you put then down some form of vinyl floor, something very modern and sleek without any texture, I think sometimes it can clash a little bit, and because something that's 150 years old is always going to look so much better than something modern and slick, it's difficult to compete with it. I often think it's better to go with kind of texture, like tiles that are ceramic or encaustic or something that's got real kind of depth and structure to them.
Something that is inherited to the crafts used at the time as well. A glazed tile, for example, anything like that won't harm that space. It will enhance the space.
Or if you're brave enough, wood floor. But if you're doing that, definitely massive shower trays, none of this kind of small shower, the door that opens and water going to be sort of spilling out because it would be a nightmare. But from a looks point of view, wood floor does look lovely. Yeah. In a Georgian space as well.
Nice. Kind of going on from that, so Mia asked, do you have any ideas for making an old traditional bathroom feel more modern without losing its genuine character?
I think that approach of the contrasting of the old with the new is a very good approach to take, I think, and that's reflected in some of our work where we like to contrast the two, and the two together look better because of it, where we enhance the old features with
But how, like, what would you be using?
what would I be using
Yeah,
specifically?
like what would be the items that are the contemporary?
Yes. I think,
Just emphasising the question.
yeah, thanks for that. I mean, this is again personal preference. My personal preference would be starting out with terrazzo, which is what we've done at the CP Hart showroom, because it's so versatile. It goes with the old, or it can, but you might have a very different answer to that.
Mm. But I said, you know, because sometimes I think questions we have, dialogue a lot with clients, are sometimes about, you know, where to start with bathrooms, what things should kind of be taking priority. I think with, and usually we'd always kind of say space and form and where the daylight is coming through, the flow of the space, before then thinking about what goes in the room. But often with, if we're using a Georgian room as an example, or somewhere that's old and traditional and got character, grade 2 listed, whatever it might be, that's usually set for you. You kind of don't want to compete and mess with a beautiful portrait window. So then you might start taking a different approach. You're going, well, okay, layout and room and proportions is set for us. Let's really focus on maybe one piece that can really set off this room. And if we used the CP Hart showroom that we've done as an example, all that form is a very strong thing that we've done in the bathroom that you're stood in now. But there's very little in terms of too much ornament there. But the one thing that is there and freestanding is that sink, the cast concrete sink. And something like that, for example, sat in the middle of a traditional Georgian room, could be the one thing that then triggers another set of choices.
Yeah,
because I think a lot of people, that's the bit they find really hard. Is like, where do we start? Or do we pick the colour first and then find tap that matches that colour and then a floor? And sometimes you've got to sort of take the context. I think a traditional old space is you don't mess with that, and you maybe start from the fixtures point of view.
Yeah, that was actually a common question, sort of where do you start? I guess it can be a bit daunting, but did you say you started with terrazzo tiles here or with the basin?
as a it was a terrazzo as the palette and materials goes. We did start with the terrazzo because it had so many colors and tones in there, and there was enough to then start building on that. So it's the green, it's the pinks, it's the darker shades of green, and even blacks in there. That gave us the opportunity and the flexibility to then start matching it with the clay wall render, for example, as well as the green bath. But that was the strong starting point, which is a material that came in last, by the way. You probably remember how long it took to get this in, but that set it off because that was a key to do the whole material palette choice.
But that was the first material choice.
Correct.
But that bathroom started with form and shape. That's because there we weren't working with a traditional house. We weren't working with an existing context, so we almost had to create that for ourselves. So it's a very much a form-led bathroom. So that bathroom is probably a good example of if you're working in a very new space where you've probably got a bit more freedom and can open up a roof or can extend or can build walls. So it's a very different context potentially to a historical building.
Yeah. We would never start with just the material palettes to define the design. It is about daylight first, it's about shape or layout, and then maybe the materials and fixtures and fittings come after that, just because it's too important to not start with light, for example, how to frame it.
It's it definitely, talking from sort of experiencing it, when the floor went in, it definitely pulled it all together. So it's interesting that was sort of the base palette. It went in. Kieran asked if you have a favourite colour pairing. Obviously, this is very strong green and pink. Is there a recurring colour theme throughout that you sort of tend to go for?
Definitely not.
Don't think so. I mean, good pairings are pink and green are good pairings. Yes, maybe a blue, light blue and pink is also good. A pink and yellow. I mean, it's a lot of pink now, but these are the things that come to mind.
Or, you know, it doesn't have to be a pairing.
No.
Like that's the, you know, some really fun bathrooms we've done. There's no pairing whatsoever. There's just one strong colour, and that's it. That's the theme of the room. And others again, just colour isn't even a feature. It's material, like maybe more kind of natural clay type walls and timber, and everything else being quite neutral in terms of the ceramics and the tiling. So it's, you know, specifically that question, if there's a colour pairing, there's a few that you've mentioned there that we like, but it's not necessarily the case that we're always looking for a colour pairing.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, ones we design, they're all totally different, I think.
And that's what we like.
There's one sort of recurring theme on a couple of bathrooms of small square tiles and using a real sort of pop of colour that's been in a couple of houses. But I think I'd like to think there's quite a lot of variation in there. Again, it's about people, it's about the house, and there's a lot of different sort of stories to tell with each house that we work on. And then again, the showroom at CB Hart, you know, there's nothing that we've done that's looked like that before. That's the fun of
There's an open
these different things.
Yeah.
But definitely a sort of move towards very kind of natural feeling bathrooms as well is something that's really exciting us at the moment. And, you know, earthy kind of colours and textures like the clay and bamboo and set against the texture of terrazzo, that kind of stuff that's what we love about the CPR one.
Yeah. Catherine, this is probably of interest to people in London. Catherine was wondering if you can have a freestanding bath in a small bathroom. Does it work?
No.
You can try it, but in our experience, it doesn't work well because it's just hard to make work. It's very hard to get around. It's very hard to clean around. It doesn't do it justice. So there's a very good reason why it's hard to make it work.
Yeah, I mean, you can. It all depends, again, on the wider context. I was in a house recently that was a small bath, like that typical, you know, talk over Ewald's coffin fit.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
thank you for just.
A lot of typical London houses have the bathrooms in the attic, so the bit that sticks out the back of the house. It's usually 2 stories tall, and they're quite square and small. And usually bathrooms are squashed in there. They're just about big enough for bath, toilet, and sink, or shower, toilet, and sink. And in some houses, I've seen it where there's a free and it can work, but when it definitely doesn't work is when that bathtub also needs to act as a shower, and you then got to start thinking about shower curtains and screens and things. And in a small bathroom, that's not going to work. But if you've kind of got somewhere else in the house that maybe is dedicated more to shower and walk in, it is feasible. It's just thinking about the context, yeah, but also just about how much space there might be inside of the bathroom. Well, I know it sounds really boring, but from a practical point of view, if you can't access it and clean it, it's also not going to just. That's telling you something it's not working anyways, and it doesn't look right. It doesn't feel right, as well as not being practical, not being dust and whatever else.
It's a sad realization. Having a look, which ones have we covered? Do you mix metals, and if not, why not?
So I'm assuming that's like brass.
Unless you have a foundry that you
I'm assuming like the tap fitting. Right?
I think, mixing finishes perhaps rather than.
I don't think we do within the same space. No, I think we'd like to keep it consistent as a choice. If we're going for brass fit out of taps, we kind of stick with that, or black, or white, or whatever color that is available. But we do like mixing and matching within different rooms within the same house. I don't think we need to go over consistent throughout, because that potentially takes away the fun a little bit, or the opportunity a little bit. But that's a personal preference of ours. Some people really like to be consistent throughout the house, and that feels very considered as well. It's a very different set of parameters and a very different feel.
But I would say, you know, if there's something really, like if there's a reclaimed aspect to a bathroom and something's going to be a sort of second-hand or reclaimed items, like sink and basin and tap, for example, I don't think it needs to be too precious then. Like houses can be fantastic when they feel like they're a collection of things that are new and things that are found, and there, I think that's then a totally different context. I think a bathroom works really well if you maybe have some very modern shower fittings, but then the hand basin is traditional or toilet.
Yeah.
But generally, we do seem to sort of always keep consistent metals in bathrooms.
How do you overcome the challenge? I know this is definitely something I faced in terms of matching the finishes across different brands. So, for example, brushed brass, there's a lot of variation.
We don't. I mean,
you usually try to keep the brands. The brands the same. I mean,
you can disagree with me on that, George, but I do think we try to. We don't try to overdo it either. If one fitting is brushed brass and the other one is polished, we are okay with that. And so most of our clients are okay with that too. As long as the bigger picture of consistency within that room is there, it's not harmful to mix kind of finishes or how things are really being kind of processed. If there's slight differences, that's okay.
I think we both definitely think you don't need to be too precious about. Yeah. But again, that's the sort of school of thought we come from a sort of design angle, is space, quality of space, flow, daylight, feel first. Yeah. Fittings and appliances. I was going to say that fittings,
fixtures, yeah.
Fittings are fixtures. Thank you.
Materials.
Next, I think there could be too much focus sometimes on I'm going to get this amazing tap and that's going to make this an amazing bathroom. I personally would much rather have an incredible bathroom and happy to have a fairly standard tap and it work well in space.
Yes, it's about the priorities as long as they're there. I agree.
I think I probably know the answer to this based on your previous answers, but do you have a go-to brand?
We have different ones. We talked about this earlier. Do you want to go first?
I really like Hansgrohe for like taps and shower fittings and things, just because like really standard, like chrome, like just solid quality, like things that aren't gonna damage over time. And I think that is where focus is definitely worth. There's definitely a lot of brands that you can get online and things that are kind of might look great, but maybe don't function well over time, and they're just going to rust or whatever. And I think Hansgrohe is a really good one. Another one that you're probably going to mention, but mine is
Crosswater is the one. It's for the same reasons. Maybe because they do all three key finishes, which is chrome, black, and brass. They do them so well, even down to brushed brass as well as polished brass. They look quite contemporary, or they can be quite kind of in keeping with historic fabric as well. They have different avenues to take.
But there's quite a few brands. I mean, like baths, we absolutely love Betty. I never know how to actually pronounce them. Maybe you can, but Betty, BTTE. Baths, I think they're fantastic. Duravit is always really good. There's a lot of kind of good. They're like standards, in terms of standards of quality that you always know what you're going to get from those companies. And Crosswater definitely being one as well.
Nice. And going off, I guess that's sort of the quality and the longevity of it. Lauren has said, I want to choose more conscious bathroom products, but where do I start?
More conscious.
More conscious, so I guess with a focus on sustainability and conscious to the environment.
Yeah. Well, also I suppose in terms of how they're made and where they're being sourced from, and a kind of whole wider. Well, I mean that's a really good one, because that was the really interesting thing about doing the showroom. It's something that we wanted to place an emphasis and challenge ourselves and challenge CP Hart on a bit as well, in terms of where things coming from. I mean, one of the first things is to be asking questions, and I think sometimes it's amazing is that how people can't really answer where things are sourced from and how they're made and what the carbon footprint is of them. And I think the more that's asked, the more kind of demand can help lead as well. Because but we found definitely that I think the bathroom is probably the hardest space in the house to be doing that from my experience. But you cannot go wrong with starting. If we go back to that sort of materials kind of thing, starting with natural rather than trying something that's got to compete and be created in a sort of sustainable way to look the way you want it. Usually nature does it best, and the bathrooms, like we've used that sort of bamboo and wood paneling in the CP Hart bathroom. Starting from that base is probably the first port of call.
I'm gonna say before that port of call, there is another more important port of call. You could argue, you start reusing first. You reuse whatever is available from a previous bathroom, from places where they sell fittings that have been used secondhand, or architecture dealers. That's the first thing to start. That's the more sustainable thing to do: reuse rather than buy new.
Mm-hmm.
And if these fittings are manufactured in a very durable way, then they will outlast one use or one bathroom use. And then you can start building around that with new fixtures and fittings and materials where you can't find those reused materials. But that is reuse or like retrofit of a house, same thing. Reuse was the best starting point in my opinion.
Yeah, great. Let me just have another look. This is a more broad brush one for you guys, but how did you start off? How did you get involved in interior design and sort of get to where you are now?
How do you make that a very short answer?
Well, we both met at university, and after university we went travelling together, and we were in a VW camper van kind of going around Europe. And I know it sort of sounds cheesy to say, but I think that was like a first sort of melting pot. Sort of, I don't know, we never really talked about starting a studio, but we studied architecture together. But when we started out, our plan was more like we were just going to do something together. We knew that we'd have to work in business together, etc. And we worked in quite big studios and were doing things that were kind of commercial, like office buildings and public buildings. And we realised after a while we were kind of realising we were becoming detached from
the client and the emotion.
And people that were going to use them. So when we set up, having lived in a small VW camper van, for some reason that's kept coming back as this thing of, and being in London, this thing of living in very small spaces and being economical with what you were doing and thinking about storage and thinking about these things. And that's kind of how our studio got started. We were getting London clients that were living in London, we were getting London clients that wanted to know the best way to sort of use space. And then it sort of feels like we've sort of now grown, and clients have grown with us, and then houses have grown.
Yeah, I mean, you're skipping there one important step there. After we came back from traveling, we built our house ourselves. That was our first project. The house that you were living in, we kind of did it as a big piece of furniture. It was a small house, but a lot of joinery. We fell in love with the making of the architecture again. We fell in love with the detailing, using materials to its full potential, and making it into a labor of love. And we lost a bit of touch with the love for architecture because of working for bigger firms or bigger projects, being so out of touch. And coming out of that build which took 2 years, by the way, it was just a joy again to create something like that for our clients, and that love for the craft and architecture shined through, I think, at the start of our careers too.
We kind of realised nobody teaches you, like architecture school, nobody really teaches you like how to design a house and what a boiler does and where drainage goes and all these things. So building it ourselves, we figured it all out. So when we were doing early projects, we could talk to builders and say, well, if that's done that way, aren't those tiles going to crack? And how do we avoid the sort of mold, and where's that silicone joint going to go? Because we've done all of it ourselves. So it was, and then we just remember chatting with people that we studied with, and they'd start asking us questions. So how does the boiler work? What do we do? And they're all doing amazing things, but it's just a different world. We just found ourselves now in this niche of designing houses and enjoying that journey of like finding out about people, finding out about what's important to them, finding out about the history of some of the houses. I mean, some of the houses we worked on, like listed buildings, are amazing, but also falling apart, and they really need care and attention, don't they?
Yeah. And the principles of the starting points of our companies are still shining through today, which is making design as tailored as possible to that client's needs, and the joy that we get from that is amazing. To then deliver or hand over this house tailored to their desires or to their ambitions is amazing process to go through and to then look back upon as well.
I think that goes back. I think one of the questions about colour pairings or preferred things, and for us, it's like we hope and we are proud of the fact that all of the houses look different, because they all look the same. I think it would sort of say that, well, we're going in and we're stamping our mark on whoever comes to us, they're getting us, rather than actually we get so much from clients that we've worked with, all the houses are different, we've learned from them. Oh God, that's amazing. I didn't think of that. Like things that they bring up, like mood boards or travel references or materials they've already researched.
Pieces of art that they love, spaces that they've been to, all of that stuff is gold dust to us to make it more interesting for our clients.
But so clients have made us better, rather than,
It's a collaboration, isn't it? It's not just us enforcing anything. We need that collaboration. We need the parameters. We need.
It'd be very boring without people. Then they would probably look the same.
But that's what we used to do in bigger companies. You are almost, not always, but a lot of copy and pasting, and not knowing who is going to use the building is how you create attachment. And that's why we fell out of love, which is why we love so much what we do right now. And it's only getting better with age and experience. To be able to enable such a dream home for our clients is amazing as a process. Not an easy one, but a very satisfying one for everybody involved.
That's definitely our longest answer.
Yes.
The question, sorry.
The love story.
It's the one we're talking about.
We're about out of time, unfortunately, but that was a lovely way to wrap up. It was good to hear the history. Thank you so much. All brilliant insights. I'm sure everyone's found them very interesting. We would love to continue the conversation. So if you do have any other questions, do pop on our DMs or comments, and we will, of course, get back to you. But otherwise, thank you for watching, and thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.